Did you know that today is a special day in Huntsville history? Two events of national importance happened on May 14th, and both of them were made possible by the Rocket City. News Channel 19's Steve Johnson has more.
Just like Army engineers learned valuable lessons from the Hermes missile.
Considering where we are today, if you want to look at a place to see where that success story started, I would say we could start back with the Hermes and then look forward.
The Hermes was the first American guided missile to be placed on public display, and it happened in Huntsville on May 14th, 1953.
It had to be an exciting time to be able to see something that you may hear about and read about in the papers, but you are actually a hands-on product that the general public could see.
And in July 1956, the Army presented a Hermes to the citizens of Huntsville and Madison County. It stood at the entrance of the old Huntsville Airport. It was a symbol of what the community meant to America's defense. And though the city has changed over the years, the Hermes is still a landmark and worth remembering. And ceremonies to rededicate this Hermes at the corner of South Parkway and Airport Road were postponed today. They'll be held next week. For more on the history of Redstone Arsenal and its contribution to the defense of America, be sure and watch my 19 Extra Redstone story. That's tomorrow night on News Channel 19 at 10. Steve Johnson, live in Huntsville, News Channel 19.
It'd be hard to list all those accomplishments in just one story, Steve.
You should try to do it. It's tough.
I'm sure it was. Okay. Steve, thank you. It's an established fact. Redstone Arsenal was a crucial part of America's victory in the war with Iraq.
But the Arsenal's contribution to America's defense didn't begin with this war. Not hardly. News Channel 19 senior reporter Steve Johnson joins us live now.
You know, Steve, we talk a lot about the fantastic things that Redstone does now, but that's really the tip of the iceberg, isn't it?
Oh, you're exactly right. Some of the fantastic things that have come out of there for many years are almost mind-boggling. And sometimes we do take it for granted. But Redstone Arsenal has been a national treasure for 6 decades. Redstone's story is all about success.
The war in Iraq ended with a complete Allied victory, and there's no doubt about Redstone Arsenal's contribution, from smart tactical missiles developed in North Alabama to the Army's helicopter fleet it manages. Redstone was a big part of the victory.
The success that we now are having, that we had in the Gulf War and the present, would be a fruition of efforts that came out of the late 50s, 60s, and 70s.
And Redstone was busy defending America in those decades, but the contribution from North Alabama began earlier. On August 4th, 1941, when Colonel Rollo Ditto broke ground for Huntsville Arsenal, where chemicals for weapons would be manufactured. Redstone Ordnance Plant, later named Redstone Arsenal, was created to assemble the shells. 83-year-old Winona Teensy Stroop worked at Redstone, and she remembers the intensity of a 20,000-strong workforce.
And they worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no holidays. Now, we did not have Christmas or Thanksgiving. We worked. If Christmas came on a regular work day, we worked.
And by the end of World War II, that work had produced 27 million items of chemical munitions, from gas to incendiary, and it was important.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, we had to get those out, no matter what. And they went out by carloads, train loads.
But at war's end, both Redstone and Huntsville arsenals became expendable. In the late 1940s, Huntsville Arsenal was actually up for sale. But then Colonel Holger Toftoy convinced the Army to relocate the German rocket team at Huntsville Arsenal, which became the Redstone Arsenal we know today. Werner von Braun and the rest of the German scientists and engineers arrived in 1950. Feverish work began on developing America's first guided missiles. One of those missiles made the base famous.
January 31st, 1958, the launching of Explorer 1. America at that time, we were embarrassed. The Soviets had launched 2 Sputniks, and we needed to respond to the challenge. Our pride was at stake, and Redstone came through.
Indeed, a modified Redstone rocket successfully carried America's first ever scientific payload into space. 82-year-old Bill Pittman worked on America's first ballistic missile to be deployed overseas, the Redstone.
I think it was vitally important in that it provided the incubator for a number of new technologies, as well as opening the door for tracks into new technologies.
Some of those technologies were used for space exploration, and the Marshall Space Flight Center became part of NASA in 1960. Marshall led the way to putting Americans on the moon and winning the space race. That was just one way Redstone Arsenal helped beat the Soviets and win the Cold War.
I think the one that jumps out at me in that respect would be the Pershing. Through all of its evolutions, I think more than anything it helped end the Cold War.
The Pershing was a weapon system that could match anything the Soviets could field, and other successful weapon systems developed at Redstone, like the TOW anti-tank missile first fired in Vietnam, are still in use today. Bottom line, for more than 60 years, Redstone Arsenal has helped make America safe and led the way to exploring new frontiers. It's no stretch to say that no other base on Earth can claim more.
And the great thing about Redstone's contribution to America is the fact that so many of our fathers and mothers and grandparents were part of it. Our neighbors are part of it still. And you know what? My dad worked there. I lived here when they tested the Saturn V, but I swear I still take the place for granted until I'm reminded just how special it's been. I mean, I'm not sure we understand that this is an important place to the world, not just to us.
Well, that story did a great job, though, of bringing it home.
There was a lot more to talk about, but that's kind of a brief history in it.
Fascinating history. Thank you, Steve.